Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this homespun hat. What you'll be needing is a 36 peg loom, scissors, a needle, a hook, and some yarn. For the yarn that I'm using Homespun Thick and Quick yarn because this creates that really cool fluffy picturesque hat that I was showing you guys before. So the first step is to make a slip knot. We have a video on how to do this and to cast on, but I'm just going to show you guys a brief tutorial on how to do this. So you're going to make a loop with your yarn, then you're going to grab the yarn and pull it through like this, and then we are going to secure that to our anchor peg, which is this peg right here. Like that. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start to cast on. So you're just going to be making counterclockwise loops all the way around the loom. Alright, so now once you get to the anchor peg, which is the starting and ending point, what you're going to do is you're going to make another row of those counterclockwise loops. So as you make the second thing of loops, I just like to push down the bottom loops. And we're going to go to the anchor peg again. Once you've gotten to the anchor peg again, then what you're going to do is you're just going to stop the yarn by just placing it right here. And then you are going to grab your hook and you're going to hold the yarn with your thumb and you're going to pull this loop right here over the top. So this first loop right here to the left of the anchor peg is going to secure your yarn so it can't go anywhere. And then we are going to go in the counterclockwise direction, just grabbing this loop right here and pulling it over the top. So you're just grabbing all of these and pulling all of these over the top. And this is your cast on. So you're going to do this to all of these loops. Now all of my bottom loops are over top of my top loops. And now we are going to do the same cast on that we did again, only now it is going to be knitting your first row this time. So as you go, you're just going to slowly wrap these loops all the way around, wrap these loops all the way around the loom so that each peg has 2 loops on it. Okay, so now I have all of my pegs have 2 loops on them, and we're going to do the same thing that we did the last time. So we're going to go and pull the loop over to the left of the anchor peg and pull that one over the top. And then we're going to just go ahead and pull all of these loops over the top. Okay, this was our second row. So we are going to continue this process until we have gotten to 16 rows, because then we'll be able to fold over this fabric and create what is called a brim. Once you're at your third row, what you can do is you can take the loop off of the anchor peg and then set the loom down and pull it through the bottom right here and just pull out the slip knot. Don't cut this or mess with it or anything. Just wait until you have your entire 16 rows done, because then what we're going to do is it's just going to be hidden in the brim. Okay, so now I have knit my 16 rows, but first, if you guys are still confused on how to count your rows, I'm going to show you guys another way to see how many rows you've knit. So it's kind of hard to see on this, but some of my other videos show a little bit better how to count rows. But basically what you do is I'm just going to use my hook, but you start at the first stitch that you have knit so far, or the latest stitch, and then you count that bar in between the 2 stitches as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Okay, so now the next step is to knit the brim. So I'm going to grab the bottom fabric and I'm going to start, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting these bottom loops here on top of the top loop, so make sure that your stitches are all the way to the bottom of the pegs as well. So you're just going to trace a stitch behind a peg back to its original stitch and find the bottom loop of that peg, and we're just going to put that onto the hat. So now we're going to have 2 rows, or 2 loops on per peg. And then we're just going to grab the next loops on this, and we're just going to put these onto the pegs on the loom. So we're just going to be putting all of these on here, and there should be the exact same amount of loops as there are pegs on your loom because it's the same amount of stitches, so that should always be pretty even.
Okay, so before you hook all of these loops, you're going to take this one, the anchor peg, the ending piece of the yarn here. What you're going to do is you're just going to pull that through to the inside of the little thing, and you're just going to tuck it into the brim here, and then you're just going to pull the rest of the loops on to each of the pegs. And that's that. And you probably guessed it by now, but the next step is just to pull all of these bottom loops over the top loops as if this were just a regular knitted row. Okay, so these are the last 2 loops that I'm just going to hook over the top. So now we're going to get on to the next step of knitting this hat, which is the figure 8 stitch. So the figure 8 stitch is a spiral stitch, but we are still going to count it in rows, and you're going to do about 11 to 12 figure 8 stitch rows. So to start, what you're going to do is you're going to take your yarn and you're going to wind it to the second peg, to the anchor peg, and wind it around like that. And then you're going to take the bottom loop and put it over the top loop, and then you're going to take the other bottom loop and put that one over the top loop. Okay, so then you're going to do that again. So you're going to wrap this one around like this, and then wrap it around like that, and you're going to pull the bottom loop over the top. So you're knitting each peg technically twice. See, it's a figure 8 stitch because you're going in a figure 8 to create the 2 loops and pulling them over the top. So you're going twice over, so this creates a lot bigger of a stitch, so you have to do less rows. Addison has a more in-depth tutorial on how to do this as well, so I definitely recommend checking that out too. So we're just going to do that all the way until we get to the anchor peg. Okay, so it's sort of a weird stopping point here, but this is technically the end before we cross over to the next part. So this is sort of what the stitch looks like. So now I'm going to show you how to count the rows, because you're just going to repeat that process over and over again each time till you hit the anchor peg. And you're going to do that 10 or 11 more times. I did 11 total figure 8 stitches on this hat, and this is how you count them. So you just count the amount of pretty much holes that are in it, because this stitch is a lot like more meshy, I guess I should say. So the way that you count it is you count each hole. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then there's an 11th one right here, and then the bind off is the rest of it. So basically that is all you do, and you count it like that on the loom as well. So I'm going to come back when I am at 11 rows and I will show you how to do the cast on. Okay guys, so I'm back now and I have knit about 11 rows now and I'm ready to cast on. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to line the yarn to about halfway through the loom, and then I'm just going to maybe a little bit farther than halfway, and then I'm just going to cut the yarn and we're going to start casting off. And I cast off, and I believe that this way of casting off is a lot easier than using a needle because it's a lot less weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a purl stitch. So that's putting the yarn behind it and pulling this yarn over the top like this and popping it off. You're going to do this for every single peg. So this is what your hat should look like as it's starting to bind off. It should just be on this piece of yarn and you should just continue binding off. Alright, so on the last one, what you're going to do is you're just going to pull the yarn underneath like you've been doing before. You're just going to pull the yarn all the way through, and you're going to pull and cinch the hat like so. And then here is where it might be slightly helpful for you to have the needle, in my opinion. So I'm going to cut the yarn even shorter so that it's easier to start binding this off. So I'm just going to take my needle and I'm going to thread this through, and I'm just going to create several knots in the yarn. I really do apologize that it's kind of hard to see what my hat looks like in this video, so if you're a little bit confused about that, I can make a casting off video for you guys, or you can go to my how to loom knit a hat video, because I do go quite a bit more in depth on how to do this, because it is a little bit easier to see the yarn with this one. So I made a bunch of knots in the inside of the hat as well, and I'm going to leave the tail because the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make that fluffy pom-pom like the one that I had in my other hat. So to make the pom-pom, all you're going to do is you're going to take the yarn and you're going to wrap the yarn around your hand.
So it should be wrapped around about this much. I just cut the tail under the yarn, and then you're just going to slide this off, and then you're going to cut a piece of yarn about this big, and you're going to tie it onto the piece of yarn that you've just wrapped around your hand, and you're going to tie it around it pretty tightly. If you're using the same yarn that I'm using, try and tie it very carefully because this yarn does snap easily. If you want, you could use a black yarn, but I would just be careful to make sure that it doesn't show. So make sure it is super tight when you tie it, and this is going to be the end of it. And then what you're going to do is, you see all of these little loops here? You're going to cut all of them, and this is what makes the pom-pom.
Okay, so here's what the pom-pom looks like once you have cut all of these. It looks super uneven. If you like it like this, you can totally do that. But now I'm just going to be cutting all of these really long strips so that they fit in better with the rest of the pom-pom.
Now, to get that super fluffy effect once your pom-pom is all cut, what you're going to do is you're just going to pull at each individual string on the pom-pom, and you're just going to pull at them until the strands come apart, and you can see the little lines in the yarn are coming apart, and it's just going to start becoming a lot fluffier. You could even take a brush or a comb and you could comb through it. I've done that before as well. So you're just going to go at every individual strand or area, and you're just going to pull at the strands, and then everything might start coming a bit more uneven again, so you might need to cut at the strands again, but don't worry, that is normal. It's extremely fluffy right now, so I'm going to cut it down so it looks a bit more normal. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to even it out by just pulling it through the hat and just tying it off. Telling you, in the inside of the hat, I'm just going to tie all three of these strands together so that they're all three just tied together and won't come apart. So I'm probably going to triple or double knot these knots just so I can make sure that they are definitely not going to come off. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these strands and weave this strand.
So I trimmed this pom-pom up, and I'm probably just going to brush it a little bit more and trim some of these rougher edges, and that is basically the end of this hat tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial as much as I love making these hats. This is my favorite hat pattern ever, and I'm so excited that I got to show you guys it. If you like watching these tutorials and you want me to post more original pattern tutorials that you guys want to see, just let me know in the comment section below, and I will totally make up some more patterns and post them for you guys. Bye guys!